whenever you're ready.
Sounds good. Did you guys catch that there on Teams?
Yep. I'll go ahead and kick things off then. Welcome everybody to the Thursday, February 4th, 2021 Watertown City Plan Commission meeting. I'll take a roll call. Brandy?
Dolly?
Here.
Ford?
Here.
Spire?
Here.
Aletsky?
Present.
Culhane?
Yes.
And Kays, Brink, Hanson, and Dargits Johnson are absent. We have a quorum.
Thank you, Brandy. Item 3 on the agenda is invitation for public comment participant submittal. If there's anybody in the room there that would like to speak on an item that's not on the agenda, we'll have a spot for that later on. You can go ahead and sign up now. Item 4 on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. I'll need a motion and a second for that.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion by Oletsky and a second by Culhane. Any discussion or changes before we take a vote? All right, take a roll call vote on the agenda.
Culhane?
Yes.
Aletsky?
Yes.
Spire?
Yes.
Ford?
Yes.
Dolly?
Yes. Agenda is approved. Moving on to item 5 on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the January 21st, 2021 meeting. Need a motion and a second.
Ford moves.
A motion by Ford. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion on this item? We'll take a roll call vote.
Dolly?
Yes.
Ford?
Yes.
Spire?
Yes.
Aletsky?
Yes.
Culhane?
Yes.
Those minutes are approved. Moving on to the regular agenda, item 6A, resolution 2021-02 for a TIF. Brandy, I'll turn that over to you.
Yep, thank you, Blake. So this is for commission consideration of resolution number 2020-02, adopting the boundaries of tax increment financing district number 11 within the city of Watertown. So this is a project that Creststone is initiating here and developing this TIF boundary that the Plan Commission is looking at approving. So it is at 15 First Street Northwest on the corner there of Kemp Avenue West and First Street Northwest. He plans to do a mix of commercial and residential development, and will provide, yeah, actually we'll just leave it at that. The applicants are here if there's any questions for them.
Brandy, I recall looking at this property some time back. Was that a preview of this TIF that's before us, or was there some other action?
This TIF actually was before the Plan Commission previously last March, and then they had some details to still work out, so it never did go to council. So that's why it's here before you again, just because the plan itself, there were some changes to it.
Understood. And we have the applicant here in the room to talk through those changes?
Yep.
Yeah, the changes are relatively minor. We reduced we added some ground level parking and reduced the amount of retail space. And then it was really a matter of just updating it to and making sure it was current or so that it starts at today's date. Like I say, there's relatively minor changes. I think we ended up with a few more apartments, and that's why we added the parking on the main level. So 62 apartments now, or 63. This plan is conceptual. The plan is, as far as the look of the structure, has changed a bit from this. We don't quite have all those terraces, but.
Are you going to have underground parking also?
Correct, that's the plan.
What's the total parking that you'll have?
And he will have to come back for the conditional use, so we can ask those specifics at that time.
Yeah, sorry, I don't recall exactly how many parking spots. I know we wanted to make sure we had at least one, one per unit. So
And I know, just looking at the plan and what's proposed, it's certainly going to be an increase, net increase of the parking from what's there today with the existing property.
Correct.
Just a question, and I know the answer already, but I want to look at related to the total costs for the project. Can you pull that up here? Right here, the Schedule 2, Brandy, that you have on the screen. The first line there, the certified base assessed valuation, talks about the existing valuation of the property, correct?
Oh,
Right there.
yes.
Up.
And then if you look at the project costs that are part of the TIF, purchase of land is one of those. And in the TIFs, there's a difference between the assessed value and the land title, closing costs, other land purchase costs. So in this case, that total is higher. In this case, is the difference related to the difference between the market value of the land versus the tax assessed value of the land?
Correct.
And then, further down in the TIF, when we talk about the net increase in the projected value after the project, and we're looking at the total valuation, that again, though, is the projected tax valuation, right? When we're talking a TIF.
This is Chris from the development company. Yes.
Thank you, Chris. It's just a point of clarity, because the number does stand out in some of these cases where the market value can be substantially higher than what the tax assessed value is. But it's also an important note to make that the project investment is going to substantially increase that base tax value of the property over the course of the project.
Yeah, and I believe we run all of these TIF projections at 85% of the value, which is acceptable by the county and the State Department of Revenue for these plans.
Any additional questions from the board for the applicant here? All right, thank you, guys.
And did you open the public hearing? And
I don't recall. So I'll open the public hearing right now if I have not. If there's anybody in the room to speak on behalf or against, now is the time to do so.
yeah,
Or anybody on Teams for that matter.
there's not anybody here other than the applicants in the room. Well,
All right.
the applicant and Chris.
We'll close the public hearing. Look for commission action then at this point.
Chair, I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 2021-02.
Thank you, Mr. Culhane. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
A second by Oletsky. Any additional discussion on this before we take a vote? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and proceed with a roll call.
Okay, Oletsky,
Yes.
Culhane,
Yes.
Spire,
Yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Dolly.
Yes. That motion carries.
Thank you.
We will move
Thank you.
on then to item 6B. Thank you, guys. Move on to 6B on the agenda, which is commission consideration for resolution 2021-03, tax increment district number 15.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Blake. So, as you said there, this is resolution number 2021-03, and this is for tax for TIF 15. And so this project is called the Plains, and I'll grab the boundary map here. All right. So you can see the location of this property is on the corner of 16th Avenue Northeast and Highway 81. It does have split zoning currently, so it has the C2, the local commercial district, and the R3 multifamily. So, and the project itself is for 3 workforce housing apartment buildings. So they will be rezoning this, and you guys will see this on February 18th for the petition to rezone the entire property all to R3. Yeah, like I said, it is residential. There will be no commercial included with this project.
Workforce apartments, how does that differ from other apartments?
I'll handle that one. I can take that.
Okay, sounds good.
So when they look at workforce, so this is one of the programs that is new to the state that the Governor's Office of Economic Development is involved in, is the READY program. Historically was used for industrial or manufacturing type projects, allowed some different financing mechanism. Last year, the state changed it to be allowed to be used for workforce housing projects. Essentially, it's a loose term. Workforce housing could be essentially in Watertown, any apartment currently. So this TIF, just so we're clear, it is classified as an affordable housing TIF. So there's a couple different classifications of TIF levels from the state that affect how the county and the school district are affected. So the affordable housing TIF plan holds harmless those two. So it'd be all like all the other ones that we've been approving. So workforce, I'd say, is a loose term, but they're going to be 72 units in each one, a little more tailored towards some family style living, some 2 and 3 bedrooms, garages and different things compared to what we've been doing most recently with like downtown stuff. So they're a little bit different use there.
So it's going to be done through like a rural development type loan?
No.
No?
No.
Okay.
Chair,
Yes, sir.
and I apologize, I just wanted to clarify, Chris, you said that this still gets us the hold harmless for the county and the school district, right? You said?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Go back, Bonnie, more like that style. So that's one of their projects in Fargo. So it'll look similar to something like that.
I like the idea of having 2 and 3 bedroom type apartments.
Yep.
That's a good idea.
Just the mix, we're short, and then just give some more options to folks wanting to move to Watertown.
The site plan that's included in the TIF presentation, is this subject to change and finalization? Or is this going to be what's proposed?
It's subject to change. Because we'll review it through our commercial site plan application, and when they are applying for a building permit, we will review this with our design review team internally.
Okay.
Make sure that they're meeting all the ordinances that way, setbacks, landscape, all that. So yeah, you guys are looking at the boundary, which does include that entire area, if I can ever get there.
For that parcel?
Yes.
Okay.
This is Ford. At some point, will this require a park dedication?
Yes, we have already talked with the developer about that, and we will be going to the park board for that approval.
I'll go ahead and open the public hearing. I don't know if there's anybody else to speak in the public at this time, but I'll open in case. Brandy, I think you said there was nobody else in the room.
Correct.
So with that, we'll close the public hearing as well. Do we have an action from the board? Do we have additional discussion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
A motion to approve the resolution by Oletsky. You have a second?
Second, Colhane.
A second by Colhane. Any discussion on this before we take a vote?
Does this conform to sort of our other TIFs or our TIF theory generally as a city? I mean,
Liam, Chris here, as far as in what regard?
well, I mean, we've obviously, we're making use of a lot of TIFs lately, which again, I don't have any problem with. I just was curious, sort of, this one seems a little bit different than what we've done in the immediate past.
Different in like location or just different in overall?
I guess
quite
certainly
a few of our
location strategy, you know, the other things that, the other issues or questions I have, I mean, what are we dealing with in terms of like the but-for test and stuff like that?
Oh, yeah, this is, their, not to get too in the weeds, but their financing and ready financing, everything is based on this TIF approval. So there's the but-for, if this wouldn't happen, this project would not happen. So, also too, I think, you know, we've been doing downtown redevelopment, which is certainly a TIF, you know, one of the things they point out in there directly. Another thing they point out directly is for affordable housing, and this project is classified as affordable housing. So, although slightly different than the last ones we've been doing, either industrial or downtown. So I would agree with you that this is different based on those, but as far as overall TIF use historically across the state, I would say this is, you know, new to Watertown, but not new in theory to TIFs.
Perfect.
Thank you, Chris. I had a follow-up question there, but you answered it. So
And just as we always know, and Todd always asks this question, so I'll ask it for him. In there, we point out the availability of all the TIF base value of the current taxable value. There's a ratio there, and you have to be less than 10%. So adding these up, we're still, you know, right about a little less than a third available. So, you know, there's still plenty of room there. So just Todd likes to ask that, so I'll enter that into the discussion.
I appreciate it, Chris. I was just going to follow up. Well, that was all the questions I had. I just wanted to make you work for it.
And I will also point to, this one is also slightly different. This is more of the classified as pay-as-you-go TIF, so much like the Terex TIF was, where, you know, there's no financing to this one. They're self-financing and just essentially getting their money back over the 20 years of the life of the TIF.
any additional questions for Chris before we take a vote? All right, thanks, Chris. We'll go ahead and proceed with a roll call.
Ford,
Yes.
Dolly,
Yes.
Spire,
Bill, you're on mute.
Yes.
Oleski,
Yes.
Colhane.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Yes.
Move on to open public comments. I don't think we have anybody there in the room, so we'll move on to new business. Any new business?
Did I not have that added?
There's a
that's old
discussion item under
business.
old
Okay.
business for
Okay.
Sidewall Heights.
Yes. No new business for me.
We'll move on to the old business item then.
Okay. And I am sorry. It's always after a long meeting, discussion is never favorable. So we'll try to keep this brief. We have talked about this amendment to the ordinance previously, probably around like last fall, just briefly. And at that time, the board asked that they would like to see what other communities do. This is in regards to residential accessory structures and the limitation on the sidewall height. Currently in ordinance, we have it, it's limited to 10 foot 2 inches. And I know a handful of garages or accessory structures that are looking at 12 foot for their spring project. So those would be variances that would come to the board. And just in the past, we have granted the 12-foot variance. So I'm just bringing it forward as trying to be proactive to, if we think it's okay, let's just get it added to ordinance so it doesn't have to keep being a variance request. So I did compile information from other communities within South Dakota, and a lot of them, you can read in there that they do not regulate the sidewall height, they just regulate the overall height. And I would almost think, so right now our maximum height for accessory structures is 18 feet to the peak. And I'm wondering if we just change that, the height altogether, just strike the limitation on the sidewall height and make the overall height be 24 feet, because that is consistent with what we approved for the residential garage district. And as you can see, there are some communities that do allow up to 25. Huron is 25. The rule for spearfish, the rural residential lots are a max of 35 feet in height, and then in town is 15 feet. Same with Rapid City is 15 feet. Mitchell is 22.
Yeah, my personal preference on this has always been to regulate the max height at the peak, because there can be so much variability in the structure, where you could actually have, a structure be taller than, a small structure with a sidewall of 10 foot versus, a smaller structure with a sidewall of 12 foot compared to a really large garage, with the 10-foot sidewall that the peak is, way up in the air.
Right.
So you kind of get the net effect of regulating both the sidewall height and the size of the structure by regulating the peak height, right?
Right. And then another thing that I did not, and we can discuss that, but I also wanted to bring up the overall, actually go ahead if anyone has any more thoughts on just the sidewall height.
I'm with Blake on this. I like regulating peak height, but I'm open to suggestions.
Yeah, and so like right now we do have, it's 18 feet. So would you guys find it appropriate to potentially to increase that to like maybe even 22 feet is a little more tolerable? The only reason I said 24 is just to keep some consistency with our other height restrictions. Oh, go ahead.
This is Ford. I don't see a comparison with accessory buildings to the residential garage district, because that's, to me, just a totally different building on a different kind of property. Personally, I would like to get rid of the sidewall and just go to the peak, as Leon and Blake were discussing. I personally don't mind having these come to the board for a variance, because we have such a variety of neighborhoods and houses in this town. I think it's appropriate for me anyway to look at each one that needs a variance and make a decision on them individually.
I think though it does really make it, it's hard to claim hardship for why you need, because you have a large RV, so that's why I think that, in following what other communities in South Dakota are doing, I think it would be appropriate to just add it to the ordinance and say, and then if somebody wants something larger, then ask for a variance, but find that consistent, or find the happy medium, which I would propose. I mean, I was proposing 24, and my comparison to the residential garage, my thought process there is that, I mean, even in a single family residential district, the house, which can be 35 feet tall, has the same side yard setback as the accessory structure or like a detached garage.
Yep.
So you're not like, you could potentially have a 35-foot structure 9 feet from the property line. So that's where I just don't think that the accessory structure is really impacting much. So if we can allow a larger height, it's just, and it's not going to be, that's the only impact that I can really think of it having.
We had someone come in for a variance that we granted over by, for an accessory structure that we approved just recently or
Yes.
within the last year. What was the size of that building? Do you remember, Brandy?
Yep. That was over
Yeah.
in Conrady Edition, and that was
Yes.
a 12-foot sidewall. And the overall size of the building, though, was, he did not need a variance for that. It was just asking for, and the overall height, I'm not sure what that ended up being off the top of my head.
I only know that I've driven by that building and I don't know what the overall height is, but I voted for that and I regret my vote for that when I drive by that building in that neighborhood. It's out of place, in my opinion, even though I did vote for it. So I would be cautious about, I could see maybe going to 20 feet. I think 24, personally, I think 24 would be excessive without the board looking at it and the neighborhood in which it was going to be placed.
What do we regulate as far as the pitch of the roof?
So it needs to be consistent with the primary structure.
Okay.
And so, like, right now, if somebody has like a 6-to-1 slope, they would be able to go a little tall, like they would be able to go taller than 18 feet on how our ordinance is written. But where we restrict them is the sidewall. So that's why I think that just getting rid of both things, that kind of arbitrary language with the 18 feet, and then just saying that the maximum height for an accessory structure is, maybe 20 feet. I think too, Diana, I think that's appropriate. But I think the main benefit here is that is allowing them to have a larger sidewall, and then however they can make the pitch of the roof work, because a lot of times now they are doing, they're trying to be creative with their roof, with their trusses, and so I think this way it just gives a little more flexibility, and not trying to be like, we want to protect neighborhoods, yes, but just also trying to find the greater good in allowing people, if they want to store their things indoors, to be able to have some flexibility.
There's a garage.
And I think that's particularly important in the R2A, districts of town, where if you were to try to, match some of those old roof pitches, right, you probably couldn't even do a 10-foot sidewall in some of those and be consistent with it. Modern truss design is so much different than what was done 100 years ago. And these properties have very little space to begin with. So having a little bit more flexibility on what they can do within a common constraint, I think, would be a step forward.
There's a garage under construction right now on South Lake Drive, like across the road from Arnold's.
Yep.
How tall is that sidewall?
That sidewall is, that sidewall is 10 foot too.
Yeah, I know, but you
the pitch matches the house.
And then they have that special part in the middle. I mean, my gosh, those rafters are something else. So if they would have had that 2 foot extra, they would not have had to have done all of that, would have they?
No.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So that's good discussion there. If you guys are, then I just do have one more thing to bring up as a part of this discussion for the accessory structures. So also we have all of these thresholds of, so an unattached garage, we have a size limitation. So it's based on the total square footage of the residential lot. So you can see that with the different lot sizes, then you have additional allowance for a larger detached structure. And then I also did talk with other communities about this as well, and a lot of them are doing just total lot coverage, which so on top of this, then we already say that structures may be located in the required rear yards, but may not occupy more than 30% of the required rear yard. So, and kind of what we've done with other districts is we've just done lot coverage. And I did hear back, I just sent the email out today just because I was thinking about it. Huron they don't do any limitations on the size. They say a 45% lot coverage, and Yankton does a 35% lot coverage. And when I just did quick math of like a completely typical residential lot, the minimum size is 9,000 square feet, 75 foot of frontage, 120 feet in depth. So that already, for the primary structure, the setbacks take up 65% of the lot coverage anyway. And then for accessories, the setbacks take up 52% because you don't have as large of a rear yard setback. So I think that's also something that I'll look at further. But if you guys are in agreement, I think that would just clean the ordinance up and make it easier for people to be able to interpret. And then, because otherwise there's just...
So this would just be total lot coverage then?
Yes.
Including the combination of accessory and principal structures?
Yeah. Yeah, and I could put together some examples there, but I think, and that hasn't been as big of an issue as the sidewall. So that could be something that I continue to research, and just with workload and everything. But I wouldn't mind putting some figures together for you guys to really get an idea. And even for me, like I said, I just kind of thought of it today. So
and maybe similar to what we did when we were talking about the R2A stuff, and looking at like a corner lot scenario, looking at some of these smaller lots and how they fit into it.
Yeah, but if you guys are on board with seeing an amendment for just eliminating that sidewall limitation and then just putting a maximum height, I would bring that forward at the next meeting just to keep that moving. So with spring coming on and knowing these potential building permits and just trying to be proactive there.
I mean, I'm for simplification where it makes sense, just off the cuff, but I'd probably have to look at some specific scenarios and wrap my head around it.
And this would just be for the sidewall, though. No, I wouldn't include this whole size limitation.
Yeah, and speaking to that, I guess that's what I'm talking about. I need to think about that a little bit.
Yeah, same. So, if I guess the board can look forward then to seeing that ordinance amendment, and we can discuss it there and see if you guys are comfortable with where we landed. And obviously, I'll work with Heath and Stacy on trying to find the right height. But
I think that's fair.
All right. Well, perfect. Thank you for your input, everyone.
Thanks, Brandy.
And otherwise, I do not have any additional old business.
Any additional old business from the board? Any reason for executive session?
Nope.
Then I will go ahead and adjourn us.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.